So let's talk about one of the most famous luxury watches in the world. But this is way more than just a story about a watch. It's a story about how a single, desperate gamble, born from a moment of total crisis, completely rewrote a 100-year-old legacy. And believe it or not, it all started with a single question.
I mean, really think about that for a second. An entire century of tradition, of history, all coming down to what happens in a single 24-hour period. It sounds impossible, right?
Well, for one of Switzerland's most legendary watchmakers, the impossible is exactly what happened. One single day, one design, one massive roll of the dice, and it changed absolutely everything.
Okay, so to really get how huge this gamble was, you gotta understand what they were risking. We need to go back, way back, to the very DNA of Audemars Piguet, a brand that was built on a foundation of painstaking, old-world tradition.
Right from the get-go, in 1875, these guys, Audemars and Piguet, were just obsessed with craft. They weren't just making watches, they were pushing the art form forward. Like in 1934, when they created the world's first skeleton watch, literally opening it up to show off the incredible mechanics inside. So by the 1970s, they were hitting their 100-year anniversary as absolute titans of quality.
But you know what really made them different? It was this fierce independence. They've always been family-owned, never swallowed up by some big corporation. And that let them hold on to this sacred belief. Every single watch was handmade. This wasn't mass production, it was pure artistry.
But here's the thing about legacies. They can be fragile. That commitment to artistry was about to face the fight of its life, because as the 1970s rolled in, the watch world was changing fast, and Audemars Piguet was getting left in the dust.
I mean, just try to put yourself in their shoes. For almost 100 years, their name was basically the definition of luxury. They were the gold standard for handcrafted perfection.
Yeah, but prestige doesn't pay the bills, does it? The market was moving on, and just being the best wasn't cutting it anymore. It wasn't translating into sales.
The hard truth was, despite that incredible reputation, the company was in deep, deep trouble. They had all the history and quality in the world, but without a watch that people actually wanted to buy, they were staring right at the edge of a cliff.
So with their backs completely against the wall, the people in charge at AP knew they had to do something radical, something that would break every rule they had ever lived by. And the solution? Well, it literally came overnight.
So what do you do? I mean, what do you do when the formula that made you famous for a century just stops working? Do you dig your heels in and stick with tradition, or do you light the rulebook on fire? Well, they chose fire.
Okay, and this is where the story goes from interesting to absolutely legendary. The inspiration wasn't some priceless painting. It was a rugged old diver's helmet with its big exposed screws. The material wasn't gold or platinum, it was good old stainless steel, which for a luxury watch back then was just unheard of. And the craziest part? The whole thing was designed in a single day, because that's all the time they had. It's just wild.
And the result of all that chaos? The Royal Oak. It wasn't just a new watch, it was a whole new category of watch. The first ever luxury sports watch made of steel. It was a total contradiction, a revolution you could wear on your wrist.
But, okay, making something this wild is one thing. Actually selling it? That's a whole different ballgame. The Royal Oak was a massive bet, and at first, it really looked like that bet was about to go bust.
Let me put this in perspective for you. At the time, the Rolex Submariner was the steel sports watch, right? The benchmark. Audemars Piguet launched their steel watch for more than 10 times that price. It was audacious. It was insane.
And people, well, they just didn't get it. They were shocked. A steel watch that cost more than a lot of gold watches? It made no sense. It was a total flop right out of the gate.
You want to know how bad it was? They sold 1,000, not a month, 1,000 for the entire first year. That's it. For a company betting its entire future on this thing, that number felt like a death sentence. It really looked like it was over.
But, and this is the crazy part, here's the twist. That astronomical price tag, the very thing that made everyone scratch their heads, it was also the thing that saved them. Because even though they weren't selling a lot of them, each one they did sell brought in so much cash that it created just enough of a lifeline to keep the company afloat.
And that little trickle of cash was just enough to keep the lights on. It bought them time. Time for the world to catch up, for people to finally get what the Royal Oak was all about, and for it to become one of the most important watches ever made.
When you look back, the legacy of that one desperate gamble is just staggering. It didn't just pull Audemars Piguet back from the brink of failure, it invented a whole new category of watch that still dominates the industry today. It's a timeless icon, always changing, always evolving, but it all comes back to that one brilliant overnight design.
So it really makes you think, doesn't it? Audemars Piguet wasn't saved by clinging to their past. They were saved because they had the guts to completely break from it. So what's really more valuable in the end? The 100 years of tradition that build a great name, or that one moment of courage that makes sure that name has a future?